Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters in Washington State, suggested by user Randy Jolliffe 8781. I hope I pronounced that right. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, as it really helps my channel out, and I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. Mysterious object in sky reported. From the Post-Intelligencer, December 21st, 1970. Several East Side residents who thought they may have seen a meteorite or some other astral phenomenon last night probably did not, said Dr. Paul W. Hodge of the University of Washington Astronomy Department. One Kirkland man and a North End householder both told the King County Sheriff's Office they had observed a mysterious object streaking across the sky, trailing sparks about 8:30 p.m. They thought at first it might have been an airplane going down, Earl N. Bonsgard Kirkland noted. It was traveling horizontally and going slow. It looked like it broke up over Lake Washington. It looked like a burst of fireworks. Dr. Hodge, who lives in Windermere fronting the north end of the lake, said he also observed the same thing while watching the Christmas ship pass. He said, "In some ways it did resemble certain very rare meteor events, but I noticed there were no stars visible and the object was below the cloud level. Meteors usually burn out not lower than 60,000 yards, so I assume whatever it was must have been man-made." None of the airports or police agencies in the county reported any planes in trouble, and one control tower queried the sheriff's office about a possible meteorite burnout in response to a call it received. UFO seen flying over Mica Peak. From the Spokesman Review, November 23rd, 1970. A visit from outer space? A spear-shaped, unidentified flying object was observed moving back and forth over Mica Peak southeast of Spokane at 6:10 a.m. Sunday, the Sheriff's Department reported. After receiving 2 calls reporting the object, the Sheriff's Department alerted patrolling units north and east of Spokane, both of which confirmed seeing the object before it disappeared shortly after. The control tower at Spokane International Airport also reported observing the UFO, sheriff's deputies said. The Sheriff's Department said it reported the incident to Fairchild Air Force Base, but was told the Air Force had disregarded its UFO program and was not interested. UFO, huge footprints puzzle Vader family. From the Centralia Chehalis Chronicle, December 16th, 1970. "Mommy, come look." Mommy ran to the window, dreading that what she was about to view was the legendary Bigfoot striding across the yard. Instead, what she and her 4 children saw was a gleaming, orange-colored, disc-shaped object angling up over the nearby Bonneville power lines and off into the distance. That was on December 7th, a Monday, and was only one of a series of strange, frightening, but fascinating incidents at the Wallace Bowers residence near Vader. The reason Mrs. Bowers expected to see Bigfoot himself when she rushed in response to her son's startled call was that on the previous Friday, she discovered huge footprints in her yard, one set measuring about 15 inches in length and nearly 6 inches across. There was about an inch of snow on the ground that Friday, and the prints had made indentations down through the snow and crushed the gravel underneath, down about 1.5 inches, according to Mrs. Bowers. And Lewis County Sheriff William Weister and a deputy came out and took pictures of the prints. Weister told Mrs. Bowers the prints appeared to be made by no known species, man or beast, and advised her to call his office immediately should anything of an unusual nature occur. A check with Weister's office this week confirmed the incident. However, deputies suspect the prints could have been a hoax. But, whatever the origin of the prints, when Mrs. Bowers saw the orange object lifting into the sky, she decided that was quite unusual enough and again called the sheriff's office. She had them on the line while the object was still in view and also called a neighbor, Mrs. Clarence Hubbin, to see if she could also see it. Mrs. Hubbin said she and her 3 children looked out their window and saw what looked like a bright star moving across the sky. Mrs. Bowers said she and her family first noticed the object, which she estimated as having a circumference about the length of a car, at about 7:15 a.m. She thinks it was probably in sight about 10 minutes, since she had time to call the sheriff's office and her neighbor. It appeared to her to be centered by a dome around which a larger circle seemed to be revolving. It was deeper orange in the center, with the light diffusing toward the outer edge, but with a definite bright rim. Mrs. Bowers said it seemed slightly tipped sideways, as an airplane banking, and that it hovered momentarily directly over the power lines before it moved off into the distance and out of sight. After it left the power lines, it changed from orange to a bright, clear light, and at one time seemed to make another sweep closer, again turning orange. I thought, oh no, it's going to come back, Mrs. Bowers said. Although she didn't see it, Mrs. Bowers said her children saw a gray shape drop away from the object before it disappeared from sight. Mrs. Bowers said she had read very little about UFO sightings, but that her oldest son, Corey, 10, has been very interested. The other Bowers children are Kevin, 9, who first sighted the object, Kimberly, 7, and Jeffrey, 5. Mrs. Bowers says she switched the intercom on in the home during the time the object was in sight and heard a sound she can only describe as sharp. And the funny thing is, we tried to use the intercom the night before and we got the same sharp sound. Later that same week, Mrs. Bowers was putting a log on the fire in the living room when she saw the curtains moving in the boys' bedroom, which is visible from the living room in their L-shaped home. All the children were in the living room with me, says Mrs. Bowers, and all I could think of was getting them safely out of there. So I loaded them into the car and we left, but I definitely saw a shape in the bedroom as we drove away. They stayed away until after Mr. Bowers was home from work, and when they returned, it appeared that someone had rummaged through the bedrooms, but nothing was missing. I feel sure that was probably a prowler. We've had trouble in our neighborhood, and I don't think it's related to the others. But the footprints and the saucer, I don't know. She also recalls that the dog acted very strangely the night before the footprint incident when she went out to feed him. There's been so much excitement, so I've told the kids it was just Santa Claus checking on them. My husband works for Weyerhaeuser up on St. Helens, and they're teasing him that he just brought home one of those abominable snowmen. Since this happened, I keep running into people who have seen similar things, only they didn't report them because they thought they'd just be laughed at. UFO sighted in Prescott region. From the Union Bulletin, July 22nd, 1971. I'd say it was larger than Prescott, Waitsburg, and Dayton put together. It was bright like daylight, but there was no glare, and when it moved, it moved. Neil Arbogast, Prescott, described a UFO he claims to have seen on 3 successive occasions, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Arbogast first saw the object about 11:30 p.m. Friday. It wasn't round or oval. It had 3 antennas with bright red tops, and 3 beams of light were coming from it. It wasn't hard to detect its shape, but size and distance are always a form of illusion. About 11:40 p.m., Arbogast went in to get his wife to confirm the sighting. We both saw it, she said. Arbogast saw the same object Saturday night, only in a different direction and somewhat farther away. Accompanying it, he said, was a stationary object which was changing colors in a pattern of red, blue, green, white. It was the weirdest thing you have ever seen, Mrs. Arbogast added. I'd say it was too far out to be within the Earth's atmosphere, but you could still see it changing. On Sunday night, Arbogast continued, The first object was back in its position of 2 evenings earlier. This time it was accompanied by a bright orange object. It would be just like a race between a jackrabbit and a snail if one of our fastest fighters tried to catch it, Arbogast said. That first object moved out and it was gone. Arbogast reported his sighting to the local Air Force detachment. They told me the Air Force is no longer investigating UFOs, he added. The Air Force had no other reports of this particular sighting. I'm not going to be jumping the gun, Arbogast pointed out. I checked things out first, and I saw what I saw. The Skywatcher said he had seen a UFO once before, in 1958, when he was stationed at Fort Ord, California. We thought at first it was a satellite, but it wasn't. If something is scary, people aren't going to stay around. But if it's weird, they will stay and watch. And I mean, this was weird. Valley Viewers' Lights and Sky Puzzle. From the Toppenish Review, December 22nd, 1971. This week, Christians the world over are celebrating the beginnings of their faith. That long ago event surrounded in mystery was signaled by a great light in the Middle Eastern skies. In the valley, some are pondering other mysteries, although not religious, and no one has presumed to compare them with that earlier time. These too are signaled by lights in the sky. Beginning last summer, a Toppenish man began to see things which puzzled him. As he told his story, others began to unfold stories of their own, stories unshared because they were unexplainable. Put together, the tales add the Yakima Valley to that growing list of places reporting moving objects in the sky which no one has identified. There are those who would not believe there were such things as flying saucers if one landed in their backyard, Ben Vogel of Toppenish said. And then we have those who see a flying saucer every time a high-flying or crop-dusting aircraft passes. Somewhere in between these two extremes must lie the answer to these strange things. Vogel's interest began on August 27th of this year when he saw a large, bright, teardrop-shaped object in the sky above him when he was heading towards Saudas Pass on Highway 97 about 1:30 a.m. Vogel, fire control officer, was checking for fires. He described the object as light tan and almost fluorescent around the edges. Observing it through binoculars, he could see a tail at the pointed end which appeared segmented into colors of red, blue, and green. As he began to photograph the object, he could see that it was slowly moving from north to south, although the prevailing upper winds were from the southwest. By triangulation, Vogel determined the object to be about 8,500 feet above the ground. After examining the photographs taken that night, scientists at Grizzle Observatory in Wenatchee could offer no explanation. They did say the object was not stellar. The National Weather Service could offer no explanation either, except that it was not a weather balloon. That August night furnished another mystery. Before sighting the object, Vogel had stopped on the highway to talk with 2 agency law and order officers who were looking for a vehicle whose lights they had observed off the roadway. They could not find anything. When they returned by daylight, they found no roads, only a rough boulder-strewn, impassable area where the lights had been seen. On September 3rd, Vogel saw a similar object about over White Swan when he was returning from Yakima at 1:30 a.m. Again, he photographed it. It was moving north to south towards Toppenish Ridge. This time, the object appeared to have several horn-like protrusions. Telling of these 2 sightings, Vogel began to hear other stories. On August 28th, several firefighters on a ridgetop in the Saudas Pass area observed an object emitting a bright white light descending behind a ridge and into a canyon some distance away. The canyon was brightly lighted as it entered. There were no helicopters in the area at that time, Vogel said. And on October 8th, fire crews again saw an object over Toppenish Ridge at an estimated altitude of 7,000 to 8,000 feet or lower. It was rapidly changing color from white to green to red to blue and back again to white, they reported. Time exposure photos of this object show it moving in a course resembling the shape of a boomerang, Vogel said. Another evening last summer, just about dusk, several witnesses reported a bright light approaching from the lower valley, which slowly descended to within several hundred feet of the ground near the intersection of LaRue and Case roads. It was described as cigar-shaped, with a bright light at each end, about the length of 3 railroad boxcars. It was visible on radar. None of the objects described emitted any noise or sound, Vogel said. Others have reported unexplainable sightings, but the strangest reports came from some reservation fire lookouts. When others began to report such sightings, they admitted that such activity was not unusual, and they had observed such sights for several years. Many are reluctant to talk about what they have seen for fear people will question their mental well-being, Vogel said. But all of our lookouts have been with us for 10 to 20 years and are not given to seeing things. Several years ago, a new lookout was being built on the western edge of Toppenish Ridge, within view of, but 10 to 15 miles from 3 lookouts. Each noticed, without telling the others, 2 or 3 orange-colored balls approached the new lookout site after construction crews had left towards evening. After dropping to just above the ground and circling, as if to inspect progress, the balls moved off across the hills and disappeared, the lookouts reported. A year ago, fairly late one summer evening, one of the lookouts observed a bright white light about 10 miles to the south. When she stepped outside the cabin, she could tell that the light was not on the ground and yet was below the ridgetops. As she watched, an orange-colored object approached from the direction of the white light, passed between her and the cabin at about waist height and circled the cabin, then continued back towards the bright light. She described the object as a glowing, fluorescent orange about the size of a basketball and made no sound. This last summer, another lookout not only saw a round, bright white object near her cabin, but, after turning to get her binoculars, discovered the object no longer visible and heard a noise completely filling the night air. The sound resembled that made by the last water going down the drain in a bathtub. There was no wind that night. Another saw 2 small, brightly lighted objects approach and be absorbed by a larger, bright white object, then move off slowly and disappear behind the hills. All of these sightings were made without the knowledge of the other lookouts, Vogel reported. It was only after he began to tell his story and show his pictures that the eerie tales came out. This week, Vogel heard from Dr. J. Allen Hynek of the Department of Astronomy at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. He wrote that he wanted to talk with those who have seen the objects after examining Vogel's pictures of his sightings. One of the nation's leading experts on unidentified flying objects, Hynek will be in the state in April. Perhaps then, Valley residents will learn if they are seeing IFOs, identified flying objects, if he can offer an explanation, or true UFOs. Strange sight seen in skies over city. From the Wenatchee World, March 3, 1972. It's the craziest thing I ever saw. It doesn't act like an airplane or anything I have ever seen. This is how Lonnie DeCamp, 2000 Skyline Drive, describes a strange light that his family, neighbors, and even a friend in Kashmir have seen in the sky the last 2 nights. DeCamp and his family, as well as a deputy sheriff, will be out looking tonight. He describes the sight as a glowing blue cone with lights coming out the top in a fan shape. When it appears to get bigger and brighter, it will start to move slowly, he said. It was first spotted by Mrs. DeCamp and a daughter while they were driving up Miller Wednesday evening, he said. When they got home, They looked at it through binoculars and saw it move toward Black Rock and then over to number 2 Canyon Road. After a while, it just shot away, DeCamp said. Last night, they watched it in the same area for about 20 minutes. A friend in Kashmir, Martha Robinson, called them to say she had seen it. A deputy sheriff arrived about 5 minutes after it left, DeCamp said, but his neighbors can confirm that it was there. Something alien was seen here. Are flying saucers dead? From the Whitby Times News, February 10th, 1972. One quiet, clear night last week, a young man and his girlfriend spotted 2 brilliant yellow lights in the sky above Saratoga Passage. At first glance, the lights meant nothing to the young man, who was visiting Whidbey Island from Portland, Oregon. But his friend, Karen Milheim of Oak Harbor, quickly realized the lights could not be land-based spotlights. They had been beaming down on the waters of the passage from an aircraft of some kind. Thinking rapidly, the young couple switched off the lights and radio of the pickup in which they were riding. They soon realized that what they had encountered was no ordinary flying machine at all. It was a flying saucer. They weren't sure at first, but as the pair of brilliant lights moved slowly toward the shoreline and then dimmed rapidly like a pair of headlights going out, their anticipation mounted and sent shivers up and down their backs. The machine moved slowly, silently, and in a dead straight line. As the pair sat transfixed in their truck parked near the intersection of Highway 525 and Zylstra Road, the sky specter moved toward them, skimming the ground about 300 feet over the treetops. Ed Redfield said later, "It took forever to come across the bay, and then it just glided over us. It made absolutely no sound. It left you with a hollow feeling. That's when I knew it wasn't a plane. When it turned those lights off, it was like kind of a message." For Ed and his girlfriend, the peculiar episode of the unidentified flying objects is not over. The big UFO scare happened in this country in the late 1940s, but the UFOs don't seem to worry people anymore. Ed Redfield wasn't worried. He was just amazed. Explanations abound for the demise of the little people from outer space encounters people heard so much in our recent history. The space probes by the great powers may have dispelled the multitude of unexplained sights in the heavens and may account for an end to many weird theories advanced only 15 years ago. Whatever the answer, people just don't seem to look for UFOs these days. Redfield said 3 cars drove past his truck while he and Karen were sitting almost stunned by the apparition. The drivers didn't seem to notice anything, and the county sheriff's department received no calls about an invasion from another world. The Oak Police and Navy Shore Patrol concur. They heard nothing. But the startling sight of 2 intense and almost parallel lights searching the water or drawing seafood into the craft stopped the 2 young people cold. Redfield said when the triangular craft moved quietly overhead, 2 small white lights, like flashlights, shone on the tip of a long point in front and on the tail. The only colored lights were inside the craft, sighted through the left and right windows. As the UFO glided past, only a blank black wall was seen. There were no lights seen from the rear, Redfield said. All we could see after the front went by was a black outline, he said. Redfield told a neighbor of the incident when he returned home. The neighbor had seen a similar sight not long ago, with a string of lights all around it. The neighbor's UFO was spotted over Oak Harbor Bay and was moving up fast. Redfield is certain his was a flying saucer. We saw it together for a total of about 6 minutes. There's no doubt in my mind this was something alien. You get a weird feeling. Fireball surprised experts yesterday. From the Seattle Times, August 11th, 1972. A fireball which flashed across the Great Basin and Rocky Mountains yesterday afternoon probably was not part of a meteor shower now underway, a University of Washington astronomer said today. But until we have an orbit for it, it would be impossible to tell, Dr. Paul W. Hodge said. The fireball was seen by thousands of people in many states, including Washington. But Hodge said such fireballs are difficult for astronomers to analyze, especially without photographs. It's easier to get more accurate information on fireballs at night when you can position them by the stars, Hodge said. No Seattle sightings of the fireball have been reported yet, he said. But Donald M. McAusland of 4324 Hunts Point Road, Bellevue, said he was flying from Seattle to Ellensburg in his single-engine airplane yesterday when he sighted what he thought was a brightly colored aircraft approaching from the north. McAusland said he was flying at 7,500 feet over Clallam when he first realized that the object was glowing like a meteor. He pinpointed the time at 1:29 p.m. The fact that this object was traveling at such a slow rate of speed, approximately 150 miles an hour, and was on a horizontal trajectory made me very curious, McAusland said. The flyer said he followed the glowing object with his binoculars until it turned a bright blue and appeared to burn out. Hodge said most of the meteors in the shower now underway are much smaller than the size of yesterday's fireball was reported to be. The shower is known as the Perseid shower because it appears to come from the constellation Perseus. Most of the meteors are about the size of a grain of sand, Hodge said. They are moving exceedingly fast when they hit our atmosphere, and they light up brightly because they heat the surrounding air to a very high temperature, he explained. The shower is expected to reach its peak about 11 p.m. today. Hodge said residents living away from bright lights should have a good view of it. Hodge described the meteors as like a streak, 50 or so every hour, lasting on the order of 1 second each. Did radar track fireball? From the Union Bulletin, August 12, 1972. Was the fireball seen by residents of 6 states and parts of Canada Thursday afternoon tracked by radar? That depends on who you want to believe. An official of the Federal Aviation Administration in Walla Walla said the FAA Radar Center in Seattle did not detect the object. He said it was probably at an altitude beyond the radar's range. Meanwhile, unnamed officials at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane told the Associated Press they had tracked an object on radar. They said it traveled at a high rate of speed, left a trail, and made no sound. Wondering why one radar unit did track the object and another did not, the Union Bulletin called the 823rd Radar Squadron at Fairchild and asked, "Did you track such an object on your radar Thursday afternoon?" "I can't give you that information one way or another," replied an official of the radar squadron. He suggested that the base information officer might be contacted and gave his phone number, which was repeated back to him. It was not a working number. The newspaper called the base switchboard and got another telephone number for the base information officer. A woman answered the phone in the information office. She was asked if the person was available who told the Associated Press that Fairchild Radar had tracked the object. She replied the information office was operating on a skeleton crew Friday morning and she was the skeleton. She said she did not have any information about the radar trackings, but suggested that the base operations office might be able to help. No one answered the phone in base operations. The UB quit trying at press time Friday. Housewife spots suspected UFO. From the Columbian, December 5, 1973. An unidentified flying object put on a dazzling display for residents at the home of Sylvia E. Glidden, 46, and her neighbors, according to a report to the sheriff's office Tuesday night. Mrs. Glidden of 606th Northeast 123rd Avenue told a sheriff's deputy that about 7 p.m. she saw a large circular object framed in her front window. It had red and green lights around it. The woman said it appeared to hover a few feet above the rooftops across an open field directly east of her home. Mrs. Glidden said the UFO remained in the same area until an aircraft approached, and the object slowly rose a few feet, stopped, and then began slowly moving north. She watched it a few more minutes before it rose sharply and disappeared. Mrs. Glidden was unavailable at her home Wednesday, but her daughter, Janet LaFountain, 13, and son, Dave, 14, also reported seeing the UFO. Janet said she was certain it was no airplane. She maintained that it was too big to see all of it through their large front window, and that it was really close. She estimated that 8 or 9 persons in the immediate area saw the UFO, but only the one phone call was made to the sheriff's office. Janet said a neighbor watched the UFO with binoculars, but their neighbor was not reached for comment. The children said the UFO had only white lights, a lot of them, that kept rotating, and the object made no sound. They estimated that it stood right in front of their house for about 3 minutes. Janet said they went shopping after it disappeared and saw the same thing again briefly when they came home about an hour later. UFO cited, from the Union Bulletin, January 28, 1974. A yellowish, banana-shaped UFO reportedly buzzed Walla Walla County last night about 8 miles southeast of Walla Walla. A man and woman told Walla Walla County Sheriff's deputies they saw the UFO while they were in a southbound car about 11 p.m. on Mormon Grade Road. The couple said they first saw the small, yellowish-colored object in the western sky. It seemed to get darker, then became larger and brighter, they said. The object was shaped like a banana, then rotated and looked like a sphere, according to a deputy's account of the sighting. Shortly after it brightened, the UFO went out of sight below the horizon. It then reappeared about 10 minutes later when the car was heading back toward Walla Walla at a high rate of speed, so the couple could report the incident, deputies said. The man said the UFO was much further away and smaller at the second sighting. A radio was turned on in the car, and there was no electrical interference with it, deputies were told. Prison guards say they spotted UFO. From the Union Bulletin, January 30th, 1974. Guards at the Washington State Penitentiary have spotted what appears to be the same UFO 2 mornings in a row from their tower positions at the prison. It was very weird, really, said Correctional Officer William Hill. I was trying to think of 100 things I wish it could have been. Hill said the unidentified, apparently, flying object has made 3 appearances, 2 Monday and 1 yesterday, all between 3 and 4 a.m. 7 officers using binoculars have been able to see the object in the sky southwest of the prison. It looked like a little moon, said Hill. He said the UFO was round with a bluish-green light on each side of the sphere, which appeared to be revolving clockwise. It didn't sparkle, Hill said, but there seemed to be something reddish-colored at its base. The UFO also gave off some type of emission from underneath the object, he said. When the officer in 7 Tower saw this thing, he thought it was a shooting star, but it was throwing the gas out of the bottom, sparks or something, said Hill. It wasn't an airplane, because it was the same size all the time, and it was there for 45 minutes, when first seen Monday morning. After the first sighting Monday, the object disappeared, then reappeared briefly to the west for a short time, Hill said. This morning's sighting occurred at 3:45 a.m. in the same direction, but the object appeared to be smaller, he said. It stayed there for 10 minutes, and then it moved west, said the officer. Monday, the men thought it might have been above the KUJ radio towers. Vern Russell, KUJ owner, said there was nothing unusual about the station yesterday. The station's announcer, Scott Forrest, said the area around KUJ appeared to be a little quieter than usual when he opened the station at 4:50 a.m. It was really almost eerie, he said. Robert Grandstaff, Chief of Flight Services for the Federal Aviation Administration Office at the Walla Walla City County Airport, said it might be possible to track the object if it's high enough for radar. He discontinued the possibility the UFO might be a mountain airplane beacon because most such lights have been discontinued. Bob Hadler, National Weather Service official here, said it was pretty doubtful the UFO could be a weather balloon. The balloons that we do send up, near Spokane, don't have lights on them, he said. With the cloud cover we've had the past couple of days, there haven't been many stars showing. I don't know just what it could be. UFOs in Basin. Speedy silent light. From the Columbia Basin Herald, August 7th, 1974. 2 UFOs have been reported north of O'Sullivan Dam. One was an unidentified flying object sighted Monday night, and the second was an unidentifiable farmer observer. The latter refused to be quoted by name the next day. "Why don't you tell him what you saw last night?" "No," said the farmer, as he pulled at the brim of his cap nervously. "I'm not going to tell anyone about that. I don't want all the razzing I'd get." Finally he did, but not for attribution. "It looked like a mercury vapor light, a street light," he said. "And at first I thought it was the white light on a police car. But then he saw it wasn't traveling on the highway, or on the ground," he added. It was about 50 or 60 feet off the ground, he estimated. It came out of the northeast between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Monday, passed across a bean field 500 to 600 feet from his house near O'Sullivan Dam, and disappeared in the southeast sky. He said it was traveling at upwards of 500 miles an hour, and it was silent, completely silent. "I thought it might have been a crop sprayer. At night, they fly with a big searchlight in front. I kept listening for the sound, but I never heard a thing, and they couldn't be flying that fast anyway." Spokesman for the Air Force and the Air National Guard in Spokane said they had no record of flight activity in the area Monday night. Neighbors contacted in the area said they saw nothing. "I don't want my name in the paper," the farmer snapped. "I don't want everybody I know asking me if I've seen any little green men lately every time I go to town for the next 7 years. I know guys who have seen these things and told about them, and that's what happened to them. I know too many people in town." He frowned and shook his head. "I wouldn't tell anybody if I had seen 2 little green men get out of it." Like the UFO, he too was going to be silent, completely silent. Object seen. Flying saucers claimed in area. From the Spokane Chronicle, November 30th, 1974. Pilots of unidentified flying objects have not abandoned the Pacific Northwest, where the first such skyriders were spotted 27 years ago, according to Mrs. Jack Campbell of Moran Prairie. "I saw what definitely could be a UFO just last week, and I am sure many other residents of the Spokane area witnessed its journey," Mrs. Campbell said. "It was about 5 p.m. when I saw the object climb from the northwest, streak across the sky, and disappear over the horizon in the southeast. The bright body had a red tail or streak in its wake. It was faster than anything I've ever seen. I am sure it wasn't a shooting star or meteor because it arced all the way from horizon to horizon." Both Mr. and Mrs. Campbell have been UFO buffs for several years, but neither is currently active in any of the organizations engaged in reporting and investigating sightings. However, there are several Spokane area residents who have membership in UFO clubs. The largest such group is the Mutual UFO Network, headquartered in Quincy, Illinois, with a western office in Mount View, California. That organization recently reported that there have been 546 confirmed cases of UFOs landing, hovering, or leaving physical evidence of landing throughout the U.S. UFO sighting reports have received comparatively little public notice since the U.S. Air Force abandoned its official UFO investigation in December of 1969. The first reported sighting in the U.S. was in June 1947 when Kenneth Arnold of Boise claimed that, while piloting a light plane over the Cascades, he spotted 9 flying saucer-like objects between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams, moving at an estimated speed of 1,200 miles an hour. In a nationwide poll taken last year, 51% of persons contacted said they believe in UFOs from outer space, and 11% claim to have actually seen them. UFOs sighted here Saturday. From the Union Bulletin, January 27, 1975. An object which was shaped like a parachute, then turned into a ball, landed, then abruptly darted back into the air to disappear, was reported Saturday afternoon near the Veterans Administration Hospital. Royce Lockhart, 1535 East Adler Street, reported the incident to police Saturday at 3:30 p.m. after he had witnessed the strange object. Lockhart said he was in the VA parking lot when he saw the object, which appeared to be a brown and white parachute, but said he saw nobody hanging below. It was several hundred feet in the air when he first saw it, Lockhart said. He said when the object got to within about 100 feet of the ground, it rolled up into a large ball, descended to the ground, and started to roll towards some trees. Before reaching the trees, however, the ball suddenly rose back into the air and headed south, floating away from the area, Lockhart said. Lockhart, while admitting he was a bit nearsighted, said he had not been drinking, but if he had, he would give it up, he told police. He said he saw no other witnesses in the VA parking lot. Mystery lights, power out occur. From the News Tribune, January 6, 1975. Brilliant blue lights were seen flashing over the Narrows and moving toward Mount Rainier Sunday evening, but local authorities were at a loss to explain them. The sightings coincided with a blackout of citizen band radio transmissions throughout the Tacoma area. A Gig Harbor resident said he saw the phenomenon traveling in the sky from the direction of Shelton over the City Light power transmission lines from Cushman Dam. The phenomenon, described as a rather obscure shape with a brilliant bluish light around it, went at high speed over the Narrows and then toward the mountain, the resident said. Area amateur radio operators said their transmissions were blanked out for about a 3.5-minute period beginning at 9:52 p.m. Tacoma police received calls about the lights at 9:35 p.m., officers said. Meteor, or UFO, seen in the Walla Walla area. From the Union Bulletin, December 31st, 1974. A strange object described by some late-night observers as possibly a meteor was seen sailing across the skies over the Walla Walla Valley last night. Jay Stromer, Route 1, said he and other persons in the Touche area said they saw a white blinking light low on the horizon about 7:30 p.m. Stromer told the Washington State Patrol the white blinking light at first moved across the sky at a high rate of speed, then turned into a ball of red, green, and yellow light and vanished over a hill. Another man who did not wish to be identified said he saw what looked to him like a meteor about midnight moving across the skies above the Veterans Administration Hospital. It was really moving, the man reported. It was so close you could see the sparklers flying off. He said it looked like it disappeared over Colfax. He described it as covering about 1/8 of the horizon above the mountains and looked about the same size as the full moon that was visible last night. "Prettiest thing I ever saw," he said. A spokesman for the Federal Aviation Administration's Flight Service Station at the Walla Walla City County Airport said no reports of any unidentified flying objects had been made there in the past 24 hours. County residents see UFOs. From the Centralia Chronicle, January 30th, 1975. The UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are back again according to various night watchers in Lewis County. Ray Wallace Toledo, who has observed hundreds of them in the past 11 years, said he and several other couples saw one southeast of Toledo Tuesday night. He saw another one Monday night over the new Toledo High School site. This one also was observed by Wayne Pedersen. It headed east toward Mount St. Helens when it left. Other Toledo residents who watched last night with Wallace include Kemp Olson, Ralph Olson, Stan Olson, Orrin Layton, and their wives. Wallace suggests anyone interested in seeing a UFO to just stand outside and look into the night sky for a while. They are brighter than a star and lower in the sky. You can tell when they are about to move or change position, Wallace pointed out, because the light alternately gets dim then real bright about 6 times before taking off. The sightings this week were the first he has seen this year. He only saw 3 last year, but he observed over 100 during 1973. Wallace said UFOs hovered over the Centralia Steam Electric Plant all during the construction period. Many in the area saw the UFOs then. He also has seen them over the Bonneville Power Administration power line northwest of Winlock. At one time, Wallace said he saw a flying saucer land on what he called a mothership when the bright light went into another bright light. He also has seen as many as 3 UFOs at one time along the freeway in southern Lewis County in 1973. Sometimes the UFOs are stationary for up to several hours at a time, Wallace has observed. The flying saucers follow no regular flying pattern. They may go up, across the sky, or on a slant, and can travel at tremendous speeds, Wallace said. Willipa woman observes UFO. From the Aberdeen Daily World, May 3rd, 1975. Mrs. Lance Debbie Settlemeyer, a 20-year-old housewife who resides in the community of Willipa, east of Raymond, reported to the Pacific County Sheriff's Office and City Police yesterday that she observed a strange object in the sky in the Wilson Creek area about 8:30 p.m. Thursday. Mrs. Settlemeyer said she first noticed the bright, star-like object while she was driving home from a friend's house, and it was still visible in the eastern sky when she got to the driveway of her home, and then disappeared in the atmosphere. In all, the object was in sight about 5 or 6 minutes, though it appeared to vanish at a time or two, but came into sight again, the young woman said, and added that it seemed to be traveling very fast. Debbie said the object was larger than a star, though it appeared to be white in color with a tinge of yellow. She said there were no other stars out at the time as it was just getting dark. Mrs. Settlemeyer states she has no theories about UFOs and does not claim to have seen one. She said the only reason she reported the incident to authorities was to ascertain if such an object had been sighted by any other person. UFO sighting reported. From the Tri-City Herald, November 4th, 1975. Police Chief Ed Flieger said he and a deputy watched for 2 hours a pulsating, umbrella-shaped object in the sky early today. Flieger said the object moved slowly over Richland, West Richland, and surrounding hills, changing from dull yellow to bright white, then from blue to red, before it disappeared at about 5:30 a.m. today. Flieger said a Benton City woman was returning to her home from work at 3 a.m. when she spotted the unidentified object which appeared to be hovering over her house. Afraid to get out of her car, she drove to the police station for help, Flieger said. Flieger and Deputy Phil Carpenter drove out to the woman's house and spotted the object. Flieger estimating its position at 1,000 feet altitude, halfway between Benton City and West Richland. I couldn't believe my eyes, Flieger said. I watched it through binoculars and saw it was shaped something like an umbrella with antennae or something extending from the top and bottom. Most of the pulsating light seemed to be coming from the bottom extension, he said. Flieger said he'll watch for the object again tonight and call an Air Force reporting station if he spots it. I don't believe in this flying saucer stuff, Flieger said. I think the Air Force probably was experimenting with some kind of balloon and didn't notify anybody. The object also was seen by his two 14-year-old sons, Flieger said. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. What state should I cover next? Let me know in the comments below. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.